Be patient. Here we go.
Senate will come to order. Those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. Those in the gallery and those on the floor will please rise as we're led in prayer by Ralph Coleman, Senate Assistant Doorkeeper. Please remain standing after the prayer as the senator from Mercer leads us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would you join me in prayer, please? Father, as we come to you this morning, we're thankful for this opportunity and this privilege to come to you. I continue to be amazed, dear God, that a sinful sinner like me could have access to the throne just because of what Jesus did for us. And we love him so much and appreciate it daily. I ask that you be with those among our midst who are grieving and those who are struggling with health issues. Just watch over them, give them comfort and aid, dear God. I ask that you also be able to this Senate and this staff that they be renewed in their spirit and be encouraged to serve the people of West Virginia in a way that your will would be done. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Senator from Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will all those present join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag.
The United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Reading of the Journal.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, February 3rd, 2022. The Senate met at 11:02 a.m. Senator Blair, Mr. President, in the chair.
Senator from Ohio requests unanimous consent. Further reading of the journal is dispensed with and the journal be approved. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Further reading of the journal is dispensed with and the journal is approved. Introduction of guest. On behalf of the Senate, it's my pleasure to welcome our honorary pages today. Please stand and be recognized as your name is called. As guest is the senior senator from the 8th, Olivia Williamson and Ryan Dandy. As guests is the Senator from Mason, Audrey Simmons, A.D. Taylor, Breeley Brenneman, Cody Stump, and Madison Parker. Will the Senate please make them feel welcome? Further introduction, Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, today we have with us seated in the North Gallery the chaperones for our honorary pages from Faith Baptist Academy in Spencer, West Virginia, Justin and Michelle Simmons, the parents of Audrey Simmons. If the Senate would please make them feel welcome.
Junior Senator from the 8th.
Mr. President, on your behalf and on behalf of the senior senator from the 8th, we have with us today the parents of Olivia Williamson, her name is Miss Brittany Kennedy, and the mother of Ryan Gandy, Mrs. Ashley Gandy. They are both seated in the President's Gallery. If they could stand and if we could make them feel welcome.
Further introductions, Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. As many of you know, today is West Virginians for Life Day here at the Capitol, and on behalf of myself and sure pleasure of mine, Mr. President, we've got some folks from Ohio County that have traveled down to be here today for this important event. Julia Chaplin, Deborah Smith, and Amy Wade. They're here in the President's Gallery. If the Senate could make them feel welcome.
Senator from Boone.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Senator from Logan, Senator from Cabell, the Senior Senator from the 5th, the Senior Senator from the 6th, and the Senator from Mercer, we're very pleased to have with us today with the Executive Director of the Contact Rape Crisis Center, Sharon Pressman, and her assistant, Michaela Wamsley, seated in the rear chamber. If they'd stand, the Senate make them welcome.
Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your behalf and the behalf of the Senior Senator from the 4th and myself, today's Pro-Life Rally Day at the Capitol, and we're joined in the galleries by members and supporters of West Virginians for Life. They are here to advocate for everybody's right to life and the belief that God intended for every life to have a fighting chance. If members of the Senate will please all make them feel welcome.
Further introductions. Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your behalf, on behalf of the Senator from Summers, I'd like to make welcome friends from Family Refuge Center in Greenbrier County that also covers several counties in the southern portion of the state. If y'all please stand as I call your name: Nicole Massey, Whitney Harris, Tyranda Martin, and Stephanie Moore. Thank you all for all you do, and will the Senate please make you welcome.
Further introductions. Senator from Summers.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the North Gallery, I have some good friends, Vincent Deed and Jamie Baker, that have come down from Greenbrier County to be with us today. Will the Senate please make them welcome?
Are there further introductions? Pursuant to Special Rule of Order adopted on January 18, 2022, the Chair announces that the Senator from Jefferson has been approved to vote by proxy and has designated the Senior Senator from the 17th to vote on her behalf, and that the Senator from Tucker has been approved to vote by proxy and has designated the Senior Senator from the 17th to vote on his behalf. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of committee substitute for House Bill 4311, creating criminal penalties for illegal voting activity.
Message be received, and the bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Communications from the Executive.
There are none.
Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration Senate Bill 216, creating Student Journalist Press Freedom Restoration Act, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Roland A. Roberts, Vice Chair.
Report will be received, and under the original double committee reference, the bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 312, Alcohol Beverage Control Commission rule relating to private club licensing, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
The report be received.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration Senate Bill 419, establishing pilot project to evaluate impact of certain post-substance use disorder residential treatments, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Michael J. Maroney, Chair.
Report be received.
Your Committee on the Workforce has had under consideration Senate Bill 501, eliminating requirement on apprenticeship tax credit for certain tax years, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Roland A. Roberts, Chair.
Report will be received, and under the original double committee reference, the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration Senate Bill 533 relating to funding for health sciences and medical schools in state, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Eric J. Tarr, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 540, allowing municipal fire departments provide retirees with service weapon in certain circumstances, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration Senate Bill 546, expanding use of fees paid by students at higher education institutions, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Eric J. Tarr, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration Senate Bill 550 relating to funding for higher education institutions, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Eric J. Tarr, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 576 relating to unemployment insurance and COVID-19 vaccination requirement, and reports the same back with the recommendation without recommendation as to passage. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3220, restrictions on taxpayer-funded lobbying, and has amended same, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Mark R. Maynard, Chair.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4074, requires schools provide eating disorder and self-harm training for teachers and students, and has amended same, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Roland A. Roberts, Vice Chair.
Report will be received. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to waive the second reference to the Committee on Finance. The Department of Education did submit a fiscal note, and they said it has no fiscal impact on the state.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4276, WVU, to create a Parkinson's disease registry, and has amended same, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Michael J. Maroney, Chair.
Report will be received. Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction of bills. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bill 581 through Senate Bill 591 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system.
Senior Senator from the 17th requests unanimous consent that Senate Bills 581 through Senate Bills 591 be considered and introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Resolutions.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 36 by Senator Romano naming the U.S. Marine Corps Corporal Harry Edward Dean, Jr. Memorial Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 37 by Senator Romano naming the Harrison County Veterans Memorial Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 38 by Senator Romano naming the Cox Brothers Veteran Memorial Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 39 by Senator Romano naming the Walker Brothers Veteran Memorial Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 40 by Senator Romano naming the Fry Brothers Memorial Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 41 by Senator Romano naming the Henry Preston Hickman Memorial Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 42 by Senator Romano naming the U.S. Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Herbert Herbie D. Barnes Veteran Memorial Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Resolution 19 by Senator Clements congratulating the Ritchie County High School Rebels football team for winning the West Virginia 2021 Class Single A State Football Championship.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Resolution 20 by Senator Plymel designating February 8th, 2022 as Marshall University Day.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Resolution 21 by Senators Weld, Brown, Maroney, and Clements congratulating Jeff and Janet Allen for winning the Conservation Farm of the Year Award.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day. Motions. Petitions.
There are none.
Unfinished business.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 33 naming the U.S. Army Sergeant Lewis M. Mike Totten Memorial Road.
Resolution will be referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 34 naming the U.S. Marine Corps Sergeant Major Herman H. Bronner Memorial Bridge.
Resolution will be referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 35 naming the Ira Noon Copley and Marie Copley Memorial Bridge.
Resolution will be referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Senate Resolution 18 designating February 7th, 2022 as Sexual Violence Awareness Day in West Virginia.
Senator from Brooke.
Mr. President, request unanimous consent that the resolution be brought up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and that the resolution be placed upon its adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 18 designating February 7th, 2022 as Sexual Violence Awareness Day in West Virginia.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. The title of the resolution says it all. This, as a former prosecutor, this is an offense and an issue that I'm all too familiar with here in the state of West Virginia. Crimes of sexual violence being perpetrated all across the state. And this isn't just a crime that particularly affects or only affects one gender. 1 in 6 women and 1 in 22 men in the state of West Virginia will be the victims of an attempted or completed forcible rape, Mr. President, and that's a very troubling statistic. And, you know, today recognizes, in addition to, you know, the victims of these crimes, it also recognizes the advocacy groups that work tirelessly on behalf of these victims, because nothing was more frustrating to me as a prosecutor than when an individual who was a victim of one of these crimes was reluctant to come forward because they didn't want to be re-victimized and have to relive their experience in the courtroom. And so the advocacy groups that work with them, that ensure that they can come forward and face their accuser or face the individual that they are accusing who perpetrated this crime upon them is very important. And lastly, I want to add, Mr. President, that one of the things that I think will go a long way when it comes to these offenses is there's a lot of talk of a new lab here in the state of West Virginia. And as part of that will be the crime lab of the West Virginia State Police. And we've talked about it. I know the Senator from Cabell has had several pieces of legislation over the years to expedite the processing of these sexual assault and rape kits, as they're known. And sometimes they get bogged down because we don't have the facilities to get them through the system and expedited so that they can be used in the courtroom to help prosecute these offenders. And so I think the discussions that we're having on that lab will go a long way in helping these people seek the justice that they do through the court system. So thank you, Mr. President. I urge adoption of the resolution.
So further discussion, Senator from Cabell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just echo those remarks and thank the Senator from Brooke and the Judiciary Chair for their leadership on these important issues. West Virginia now sits at really the forefront of the country. I would argue that we're #1 in the country in terms of how we treat and how we respect our victims of sexual abuse and sexual exploitation. And the Senate as a whole has moved these bills through over the last 4 or 5 sessions. And it really has made a difference. I mean, not too long ago, a woman would have to wait 3 or 4 years for the rape kit to be tested. Can you imagine the hell she's living in, waiting for that case to go to trial, for that evidence to come in? So I know I get up and I get off on a rant and I get negative sometimes, but the Senate has really shown great leadership in this area. I endorse the resolution.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wasn't aware of this resolution, but I will speak on it because last year we took a big step in funding some of these centers in each county that we have. These numbers will be close. They might not be exact because I haven't thought about it in a while, but basically our nearest surrounding state, the lowest nearest surrounding state, gives $3 million to their people for this cause. Back in somewhere around 2012 or so, we were given $250,000 as a state to divide between 55 or 52, how many centers there were. I think some of them are joint counties, but there's close, somewhere near 50. Got cut to $125,000 in some tough budget years. Mr. President, when you were the Senate Finance Chair, you raised it back up to $250,000, which was right where they were back in 2012. Last year, we took a jump from $250,000 to, I believe, $875,000 for these centers, which was an enormous deal. Still not enough money for them, but it's an enormous deal. If you can divide that number by 55, it's not a huge number, but it's a right step in the right direction. Just for example, these are for the victims of this crime of the sexual abuse type crimes that is actually, I think, the #1 reason for incarceration in our state, in which we spend over $40 million a year on those that commit the crimes. And we were given, now we're up to $875,000 for the victims. So there's still a big discrepancy, obviously, but we're heading in the right direction, and I support the resolution.
Further discussion. Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. Unanimous consent that the remarks from the Senator from Brooke, Marshall, and Cabell be placed in the appendix to the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I can just say briefly one additional example of the Senate leading on this issue and the Senate working together to lead on this issue was back during the special session when we worked together on VOCA funding. And that was an important step in the right direction, but we've got to continue to keep that on our radar and ensure that that is clear moving forward. So I thank the Senate for leading. Thank you for the time, Mr. President.
Further discussion. If not, the question is an adoption resolution. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 7 relating to damages for medical monitoring. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the committee substitute for Senate Bill 7 looks familiar to the members of this body, it's because it's very similar to legislation that the Senate considered and passed in each of the last 2 years, but which did not make it across the final finish line within the House of Delegates. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 7 would amend our state code by adding to it a single new section, and it goes in Chapter 55, Article 7. Article 7 of Chapter 55 is the article that addresses actions for injuries. The new section would be designated as section number 32. And what it says simply, Mr. President, is that increased risk of disease, whether or not accompanied by psychological or other changes to the human body, is not compensable through damages or any other form of relief under the law of this state, regardless of the legal theory being asserted in a civil action, unless, etc., the plaintiff proves the following in addition to the other requirements. 1, that future medical surveillance, screening tests, monitoring procedures are directly related to a presently existing and diagnosable physical disease or injury. And 2, the disease or injury was caused by the defendant's conduct. So, a little history of the question that we have before us embodied within this bill. In tort law, there have always been a series of elements that a plaintiff has to prove before the plaintiff can have a recovery, Mr. President. And first of all, it's negligence, and that involves generally duty and a breach of duty. Then you have questions of causation in fact and proximate cause. That's a term of art, a legal term, proximate cause. And ultimately, injuries and damages. In order to recover money from somebody for a tort, for tortious conduct, historically in West Virginia and virtually every other state, you had to prove that you were injured. You've had an injury or contracted a disease. All right? So that was the law of West Virginia. I would contend from statehood, uninterrupted until 1999. And in 1999, our Supreme Court decided a case, Bauer versus Westinghouse. That was the case where this new theory of recovery in West Virginia was first espoused and recognized by our state Supreme Court of Appeals. We refer to it in a sort of a vernacular as medical monitoring cases. But what it is, Mr. President, it's a case that the Bauer versus Westinghouse authorized in West Virginia, whereby a person can sue for and recover money even though there's no evidence, none, that he has an injury or a disease. So in that sense, it turned on its head what had been the traditional and historic tort law of this case, that before you can sue somebody and recover money, you had to have an injury. You had to have been injured or damaged by whatever it was the defendant did that you're suing. In Bauer versus Westinghouse, our Supreme Court said no, that in West Virginia, that's not the law anymore. The law from the decision from Bauer versus Westinghouse is that you can assert a claim for medical monitoring. I won't read all the elements, but you have to show that you've been exposed to something, number one, and that as a result of that exposure, you have an increased risk. You have an increased risk of contracting some disease or injury later. Doesn't mean you have it. You just have an increased risk as a result of the exposure. And under that theory, a plaintiff can now sue and recover money for medical monitoring, which means ongoing testing and expenditures. So, in short, Mr. President, now I'll say this, At the time West Virginia, at the time the Supreme Court of Appeals decided the case of Bauer versus Westinghouse, I think West Virginia was one of only a half dozen states in the whole country that recognized this sort of legal theory of recovery. We're still in a very small minority of states, Mr. President. I think 10 states. I think there are 10 out of the 50 states where this sort of action is permitted. This bill would eliminate the medical monitoring cause of action and restore our law to what it was for more than a century until the decision of Bauer versus Westinghouse in 1999. It wouldn't mean that you can't sue if you have an injury or a disease. That's not what it means at all. If somebody exposes you to something and you contract an injury or a disease as a result of it, you have a right to sue in West Virginia, even if this bill passes. But if this bill passes, our law will go back to what it was before 1999, and it will mean that you can't sue if there is no evidence that you have contracted an injury or disease. So, Mr. President, I'll be happy to try to answer questions from the senators about this legislation, and I would like to reserve the right, if possible, to close debate.
Question has passed the bill. Is there discussion? Senator from Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this bill, and I'd like to recount why I think it's important to pass this bill. It's one of the first bills I encountered when I first came here in 2017. And because West Virginia had this law that allowed that kind of a suit, there was a class action suit against the DuPont company for producing the diet drug Fen-Phen. And it was alleged or proven, supposedly, that Fen-Phen increased a risk of certain kinds of cancer. It didn't say it caused it, it just increases the risk. Well, there was a class action suit filed here because it was legal here. And the settlement of that suit was $336 million fund was posted for damages by the DuPont company in order to pay for any claims that may arise out of someone having used Fen-Phen. Now, of the $336 million in the roughly 20 some odd years since, a law firm has been paid $12 million to manage the fund, but the fund, as of 2017 at least, only $800,000 had been paid to people who took advantage of the settlement fund that was posted. Where that's important is that if anybody, it's an economic development issue from my perspective, anybody who manufactures or uses or sells products in West Virginia that either are or might someday be considered hazardous is subject to being sued. And I don't know very many companies that can afford $300 million worth of insurance to protect themselves from this unknown, unlimited liability. So any state that has a law like that is lucky that there's anybody still working here. The only reason I can think they still are is they don't know about the law. So I think it's very important to get this law off the books and protect all businesses in West Virginia from exposure to this kind of liability risk.
Further discussion, Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President, for calling on me. I've never had that happen before.
You had the mic in your hand.
Thank you. You know, it's deja vu all over again. Here comes medical monitoring again. I'm going to try to persuade you all one more time. You know, the common law changes all the time. It has since the beginning of our country and back into the English days. In the lifetimes of many of the people in here, and I want you to think about this, when you were wrongfully killed by somebody else's negligence, drunk driver hit you coming down the road, there was a time within our lifetimes, I'm looking at some of the older folks in here, that you couldn't get any recovery. It was zero. Imagine that. Imagine that that was the law. You died because of somebody else's wrongful conduct, you got zero. Should we change that law? I wouldn't say too many of you would disagree with that. They changed it, you could get $10,000. That was the first change. The law evolved. people that were heads of household, mothers who we started to realize did so much for their children, and fathers who did the same, and working couples, what that damage that did to their families and their ability to attain the American dream. It became 100,000 a few years later. And now wrongful death is probably measured by the loss that it causes. The common law changed. And my friend from Morgan brings up that the common law changed in 1999. Tobacco companies, they were putting things in cigarettes to addict us, to make us smoke things that caused lung cancer and killed people. This state's enjoyed, I think it was a $90 million settlement that helped fund anti-tobacco. My friend from Boone County often gets up and says we got to do more to stop tobacco use. That's part of what that money went for. Had medical monitoring as a part of it. 40 years of dumping arsenic, lead, PCBs, mercury, and dozens of other pollutants in the water that cause cancer was the Bauer case, early case. And they didn't do it quite right because the law evolves. My friend from Wood County and I often talk in judiciary about the dozens of people that have been saved from kidney cancer after decades of dumping C8 into the water system. Now, these are your hometown people, folks. Your hometown people. Because they develop kidney cancer from ingesting C8 for all those decades when the board of directors of the company that was doing the dumping said, we've got a replacement, but we're not real sure what effect that'll have on people, so we better stick with the devil we know rather than the devil we don't know. Because if there's no safeguard, if there's no reason to be responsible, they won't be. And you're about to take away that reason for being responsible and to condemn people in the future to death or serious disease. And they're not buying new cars with these funds. You can't even touch them. Most of the cases you see today, and there's very few of them, handful of them. I don't know why we're doing this in a state that has more jobs than people, but evidently we want to bring some more jobs in here from irresponsible players, but you don't get that money. They don't even pay it into a fund anymore. What they do is they reimburse. As long as they have the ability to pay, they reimburse the system when somebody goes and gets a screening, when somebody gets a blood test, when somebody gets an x-ray. That's all hyperbole. That's all anecdotal evidence that somebody is buying a new car or a truck with medical monitoring funds. It's BS. And you're expected to believe it. You have to deliberately expose somebody, knowingly expose them, like the C8 guys. They knew it was going to kill people, but they weren't sure what the new chemical they had to replace it with was going to do, so they just decided to go ahead and stick with C8. You got to know you're going to kill people. You got to know you're going to seriously injure people. Now, this change to a direct injury is the end of medical monitoring. My friend from Morgan said it very clearly, very honestly. You don't have a present injury if you need medical monitoring. You have a likely injury. In Harrison County, after more than a century of exposure to zinc and other dangerous chemicals, where kids played on the playground, where houses were built, they were required to come in and remediate the site at a big cost. They made big money, but at a big cost. And they were required to monitor those people. When they wanted to go to the doctor, you don't go, you're not going to get reimbursed. But if you go and have that screening to save your life, to save your child's life through medical monitoring, then the company has to pay and should pay. Should pay if they deliberately expose you to chemicals that are going to kill you. And we know, just look around. Explain the cancer clusters in West Virginia. Explain the diseases that you see cropping up all over. My friends in the medical field know that this is happening. Why would we get rid of this when it is not causing anybody but wrongdoers the obligation to pay the bill? Now, if you get rid of it, Those people are still going to get sick. They're likely going to get diagnosed much later, around stage 4, instead of maybe stage 1 if it's caught early. My friend from Kanawha knows the difference between stage 4 and stage 1. It's an expensive endeavor to simply prolong somebody's life through the end of cancer. You catch it early, it's inexpensive. Those costs are going to fall on health insurance companies, cause all of our rates to go up. Those costs are going to fall on Medicare, further damage that fund that protects so many of us and I hope is there to protect me. Those costs will fall on Medicaid, which is already in trouble, and we spend so many tens of hundreds of millions of dollars on it every year. Those costs will fall on the taxpayer instead of the company that deliberately exposed our citizens, your friends, your neighbors, the people who vote for us, to hazardous and life-threatening chemicals through the water system and the air. We're in a state that we supposedly have more jobs than people. Maybe we want to bring them in, but I want to bring companies in that are good players, that want to protect our citizens. I don't want to protect wrongdoers. If a business is going to come in here and deliberately expose my friends, my neighbors, and my family to life-threatening chemicals, I say don't come. I stand with the people, Mr. President, and I advise those businesses not to come here, and I urge a no vote on this bill.
Further discussion. Junior Senator from the 8th.
Yes, Mr. President, I stand in opposition to this bill. I don't know if there's too much more I can add other than what the senator from Harrison put on the record. But make no mistake, a vote for this bill is a vote to eliminate an equitable remedy under the law. A vote for this bill is a vote against good policy. I would submit to the chamber that the reason why the court in Ballard found that you didn't have to have a present injury was because it captured the science and said, you know, someone may not have cancer today, but if the science shows that they're at an increased risk of cancer in the future, we need to provide a remedy for that person. We need to catch cancer before it goes to stage 4. The policy in place today when it comes to medical monitoring saves lives. It protects people. And I can't imagine why anyone would want to get rid of that. We've been gone through it now for several years. Of the years that I've been up here, thankfully, the body down the hall is more deliberative than we are. Medical monitoring is good policy. It protects folks. I've never heard that the fact that we recognize this equitable remedy in law, we've lost jobs. In fact, we've got Nucor. Nucor didn't bring it up as a problem. Green Source didn't bring it up as a problem. Procter & Gamble didn't bring it up as a problem. NGK didn't bring it up as a problem. I can go on and on and on. We should be in the business of protecting individuals. And again, all the law allows is to say, if you have been exposed, if you're at increased harm, let's go ahead and test you to get you to take care of you before you get to a point where we can't. Mr. President, I urge a no vote. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Before I recognize the Senator from Morgan to Senator from Mercer for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. President. I forgot to mention that the attorneys who testified in our hearings in 2017 said that they got a 29% of the settlement. Thank you.
Senator from Harrison for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to add in one note, and I know that nobody cares, nobody ever think I would speak for my own interest. In 30 years of being a lawyer, I've never had a medical monitoring case. Don't anticipate ever having one. And my senator neighbor here, the case he refers to is an ancient case. And those days are gone. People now only get funds when they get the monitoring on a reimbursement basis in most of the cases that I've seen. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion before I recognize the Senator from Morgan to close? Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for this debate, because I think it's been elevated a little bit. I think the senator from Harrison, senator from the 8th, senator from Mercer have brought to the discussion salient points. So, but I still believe that this is important public policy for West Virginia to pass this bill. I want to draw a few distinctions, Mr. President. I want to make sure that we're all clear, not only about what this bill does, but what it does not do. Okay, now the senator from Harrison is absolutely correct. There was a time in West Virginia where if you killed somebody with an automobile, there was a statutory cap. I think it might have been $5,000 before it was $10,000, but the person you killed, his family, could recover no more than the statutory cap, which certainly was at one time $10,000. This medical monitoring bill does not impose a cap of any kind on the damages that a family can receive when there's been an injury, a disease, or a death. If you're exposed, and I would differ with my friend from Harrison County on this, I don't think the law, either with or without this bill, requires deliberate exposure. I think it can be negligent exposure. If you are exposed to a noxious chemical that causes you to have an injury or a disease or die, nothing in this bill precludes you from suing. You can sue and you can recover whatever a jury will award for that loss. There's no cap. There's no statute of limitations on it as long as you're within the discovery rule, which exists in court cases in West Virginia. In other words, your time to file that lawsuit is told. The statute of limitations is told, and it doesn't start to run against you until you contract the disease or suffer the injury. Once that happens, then a statute of limitations may start to run, but until that happens, it could be decades, years later. This bill, let's be clear, this bill, if it passes, takes away the right of no person, not a single person in West Virginia, to sue in connection with an injury or disease or death which is occasioned by exposure to a noxious substance. That's not what this bill does. What this bill does say is that until you have a disease or an injury or death, there's no suit. You can't sue. And let me explain why it's important. Under the elements in the Bauer versus Westinghouse case, among the things the court said is you could sue in a medical monitoring case if there is an increased risk of disease. Okay. So let me just give you a hypothetical. Say that in the normal population of a group of 100,000 citizens, the likelihood or frequency that a person is going to contract a certain kind of cancer is 1 in 100,000. Let's assume, for purposes of this hypothetical, that if you are exposed to a particular chemical, then your risk is double. That sounds like a lot, right? You are twice the risk of the unexposed population. But here's the way the math works on it. What it means is, if the risk is twice as high, it means that 2 people instead of 1, 2 instead of 1 out of 100,000 will develop the cancer. That's what double the risk means. Increased risk. Certainly is increased risk, it's double. The medical monitoring cases say, in our law, Westinghouse, Bauer versus Westinghouse says, if you have that, A company has to spend money to monitor the entire 100,000 people. We have to test them all. Now, 99,999 of them are not going to contract that disease or die or become ill, but you're forced companies to pay to test all of them, at enormous expense, to find the one person, to find that one person who represents the increased risk. Now, if we don't have the medical monitoring process, if that one person develops the cancer, gets sick, develops the disease, he or she has the right away to sue, to recover for his damages. I'm going to incur medical expenses, treating this cancer, fighting this cancer, going through chemotherapy. If I die, because of the cancer, my heirs should have a right to recover. That's all true, and this bill doesn't change any of that. It leaves all that in place. But what it does say, and this was the point I think that was made eloquently by the distinguished senator from Mercer County, is that it doesn't require companies to set up funds to test enormous swaths of population of people, the vast majority of whom are never going to have any sickness or disease or injury develop from the exposure that happened. And that would put West Virginia in line with the vast majority of states in terms of how they address this question. So I mentioned the discovery rule. I wanted to mention that. That still applies. People are not losing their right to sue. No one loses his right to sue or has it diminished under this bill, if it passes, if he or she contracts an injury or a disease as a result of the exposure. This bill creates no cap on the damages that can be awarded in such a case. There's no wrongful death cap. This bill, the purpose of this bill is to eliminate the suits or causes of action brought by or in the names of people who have never had and are never going to have an injury or disease as a result of an exposure. You know, if you're a lawyer, you hear these kinds of things all the time. People come into your office. So think about it in this respect. Think about it in this respect. A person goes left of center, drives left of center. Doesn't hit you, but drives left of center and then pulls back into his lane. He didn't hit you. No collision. Do you have a right to sue him? You know, he could have. It might have injured you. There was an increased risk. There was an increased risk that you were going to be injured because of his being left of center, but he didn't hit you. You have no injury. You have no damage. That's what we're talking about here. That's what we're talking about here. And as a lawyer, I'm accustomed to people saying, well, this could have happened. You know, the hospital didn't do this and such, and I could have died. I said, but you didn't die. You're sitting right here in my office. We're talking about it, but it could have. Well, these medical monitoring cases are about what could have, but has not yet happened. And I think the senator from Mercer's right. I think if we pass this bill, it'll bring West Virginia into line with the vast majority of states, make West Virginia a place where people don't have to have such trepidation and nervousness about what they might be subject to in terms of litigation in our court system. And I think the enactment of Senate Bill 7, it'd be good public policy, Mr. President, for the state of West Virginia. I urge passage of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Senior Senator from the 17th, how's the Senator from Tucker vote?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senator from Tucker votes yea.
How's the Senator from Jefferson vote?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senator from Tucker from Jefferson votes yea.
Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 20 yeas, 13 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than the majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 481 relating to Adoptive Stream program. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Upshur.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 481 makes the following amendments to the Adoptive Stream program, which establishes a program for volunteers to clean up streams. Minors 17 and younger who participate must be accompanied by an adult. All streams in West Virginia are eligible to be in the program except those considered unsafe by the DEP. It gives the DEP the authority to approve or deny an application for stream participation. In addition to the litter control fund, funds from any source considered appropriate by the DEP may be used for the program. The length of the time a stream is in the program is increased from 1 year to 3 years with at least 1 cleanup per year required. The method of removing and disposing of collected litter is left to the DEP's discretion to coordinate with authorities for removal and disposal. The committee substitute makes 2 changes to the introduced version of the Senate Bill 481. It amends the title to reflect the amendments the bill makes to the creation of the Adoptive Stream program, and it also adds a provision which allows stream volunteers to report any stream obstruction or other calls for concern to appropriate state agencies such as DEP, DNR, state conservation districts, or the appropriate local county emergency manager. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I urge the Senate to vote for this bill. Thank you.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare them. Senior Senator from the 17th. How's the Senator from Tucker vote?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senator from Tucker votes yea.
How's the Senator from Jefferson vote?
Senator from Jefferson votes yea.
Has every member vote? Missing somebody. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House. Bill's on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2 relating to unemployment benefits program. Second reading of the bill.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill be moved to third with right to amend.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 3 requiring work search activities to qualify for unemployment benefits. Second reading of the bill.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the bill be moved to third with right to amend.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 231 relating generally to broadband activities. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 264 relating to Conservation Districts Law of West Virginia. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 493 requiring County Board of Education make meetings available to public in person and through internet. Second reading of the bill.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill advance to third with right to amend.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Senate Bill 499 authorizing legislative rules for school building authority. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Engrossed House Bill 2325, removing the requirement of continuing education for barbers and cosmetologists. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4062, removing the residency requirement for the Commissioner of the Division of Highways. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senator Seipolt moved to amend the bill on page 1, section 2, line 4, after the word responsibilities by inserting the word shall be a resident of West Virginia.
Is there discussion? Senator from Preston.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess there's no need to explain this amendment in lieu of having it read because it's very simple. While the bill relieves the responsibility of the Commissioner of Highways from having a residence in Charleston, I felt it was important not to relieve them of the responsibility of having the residence within the state of West Virginia, and that's simply what this does. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question is adoption of the amendment offered by the senator from Preston. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be advanced to third reading.
Engrossed House Bill 4301, reforming membership requirements of Huntington Park and Recreation District Board. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on the Judiciary moved to amend the bill on page 2, section 2, line 40, by striking out 1.
Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the committee amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have is that the only one? I should have let the clerk just read the amendment. The amendment is to delete the number 1 on page 2, section 2, line 40, where it appears not to belong. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there further discussion? If not, questions before the Senate's adoption of the amendment offered by the Committee on the Judiciary. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be advanced to third reading. Bill's on first reading. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered read a first time and advanced to second reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Bills be advanced. Introduction to guest.
Remarks by members. Senior Senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple things that I wanted to address here today. First of all, I want to thank everybody for advancing the bill's third right to men. I think that is actually a very good way for us to conduct business. And the reason for that is that when we have a discussion about a bill and we're amending it and all, it folds right into the work that we're doing here, so that when we go to vote for final passage, that it is right in our memories. We all know that we deal with a lot of different things throughout the days that we're here. And so we did 3 of them today. And I just got to thinking, that is a really good thing to do, and it's a good time management so that we can get to work on other things as well. Now, 2 of those bills was Senate Bill 2 and Senate Bill 3. Tomorrow, they'll both be third right to amendment. There'll be amendments. I recognize that. And it's going to be busy. But I wanted to get ready, and that's the bad part about sitting up there at that podium. You don't get in the mix. The job is to facilitate the will of this body. But I want to be in the mix on this just a little bit and share my thoughts specifically. So that's why I'm using remarks by members today. It just sort of timed out perfect for it. And so I want to go there. Look, I believe that Senate Bill 2 and 3 are actually economic development bills. Now, there's been concerns out here about these bills, and I want to try to alleviate some of those concerns. At least attempt to. Our state has just as good a workforce as any other state. We've been getting things right in this state over the last 2 decades. I believe I would argue that we've accelerated it here, but we wouldn't have been entertaining a Nucor or a Procter & Gamble if it wouldn't have been the work done on fixing both our pension system and workers' comp. I know I sound like a broken record because every time I pop up, I talk about workers' comp. But we went from 50th to number 1. We can be that in every instance, especially when it comes to job creation. Job creation in this state is something that is sorely needed in every county. And the more demand that you have on the workforce, the higher the wages will be for our workers. And if you don't have enough workers to fill the jobs, they will come from somewhere else. I want that to happen. I think we want that to happen. We cannot afford to be a state that is losing population. We need to be a state that grows population. And there's 2 ways to do it. Well, actually 3. People quit dying. That's not going to happen. But making babies, that does it. And the other one is migration. People migrating into our state. That's back to Senate Bill 2 now. Currently, you can draw up to 26 weeks on unemployment. This would change it so that it would be in a range from 12 to 20 weeks. 12 being the lowest number of weeks that you could draw, and the unemployment level would be at levels like we have right now. 26 would be on the other end of the spectrum, obviously. It's important to recognize that that's 3 months. The shortest one, 12 weeks, is 3 months. You lose your job. You have the ability for 3 months to find a job before you lose your unemployment benefits. It's worst case scenario. I've personally known and seen instances where people that got on unemployment, whether it's their fault, because you can actually quit your job and get unemployment in this state. But I've seen people that drew unemployment and didn't start looking for a job until it was the final weeks of being able to draw or to have unemployment, to receive that check. So my argument would be does it make any difference whether it's 3 months or 6 months? It doesn't. The job availabilities, unless there's a dynamic change in a 3-month period, is going to be exactly the same. It's not going to change. But Senate Bill 2 actually has the ability to change that dynamic and make it so there's more jobs here. How? I'm asking myself that question. How can that happen? Let's take a break before I answer that question and understand a couple things. First of all, the average time on unemployment right now in this state is 8 weeks, was 8 weeks. It has dropped down to 6 weeks. That doesn't, see where I was going at on that 3-month, 12-week period? The average time is 6 weeks. You still got 6 weeks to spare unless you're just not looking for a job. Employers pay 100% of the premium, and we never want that to change. Back in the early 1990s, the employees were paying towards their unemployment insurance. If we ever allow that to happen again, shame on us. And the reason for it is it becomes an entitlement. And you have the use it or lose it mentality. Right now, in this month, our unemployment premiums are going to have the, it's not going to happen this month, but I don't think it's either the second quarter or the beginning of the third quarter. Unemployment premiums are going to drop around 25% on the employers. It's also going to go from where they pay up to $12,000 in wages to $9,000 in wages. That means there's going to be a reduction there. So I'm assuming or guessing, but it's an educated guess, that it's going to be between 35%, give or take 5%, is what our employers in this state's going to see a reduction in their unemployment premiums. We're still off balance with many other states, especially the growth area states. Remember, we're looking for growth. Our topography is resistant, especially in a lot of areas of our state. And as I'm going to add this to Senator from Wyoming. And in some counties, it's got to do with who owns the land. So many of our counties are owned by 1, 2, 3, let me back up. Very few people. That's a better way of stating that. We can't lose sight. The Center for West Virginia Budget and Policy was arguing that we shouldn't drop it down from 26 weeks to 12 to 20. I would argue against that. These people don't know what they're talking about. If that was the way it should work, then go from 26 weeks to 260 weeks. If that's what drives the economy, go the other way. We all know that that's ludicrous. That doesn't work. Going down to the 12 to 20 weeks versus the 26 weeks, we realize that it is going to keep more people into the workforce, and it's going to make it so that there's going to be lower premiums paid by our employers, where they're going to invest more in the state, the ones that are located here, but it's going to be another barrier down that we're in the mainstream, to where when businesses like Nucor, like Procter & Gamble, like anybody, like a small mom and pop, business. That's what my business was a mom and pop. So I like when 70% of West Virginia is that. It allows us the ability to expand, grow, and to encourage other businesses to come into the state. Back to what I was talking about earlier, greater demand on the workforce, or migrate them here. And we need these businesses in many of these states. So this piece of legislation on Senate Bill 2 is a guardrail. And you're driving down the road and you run off the road, you're able to correct and bring the vehicle back up on the road. If what we've done here, I'm confident it will work, but I know that there's members in here that are not. That's what future legislators are for. Many of us will be here, some of us will not. But we'll be able to look at the situation and be able to adapt our policies on what we do. But at this given point in time, when less than 8,000 people are drawing an unemployment check in this state, this is absolutely the right time to do it. Absolutely the right time to do it. Now, to sweeten the pot a little bit is Senate Bill 3. It's the right thing to do too. We've known lots of people out here that their unemployment check wasn't enough to sustain where they were at, but if they took a job somewhere and it wasn't making quite what they were before, they turned the job down because of it. Senate Bill 3 allows you to work a part-time job, not a full-time job, up to 30 hours a week. It allows you to do that. You're able to get your full unemployment check and go out and work the part-time job while seeking gainful employment. But we also know that part-time jobs turn into full-times in many instances. But it also goes one step further than that too. It doesn't allow you to grow roots. Whenever I first left as an employee and started my business, I was worried about something. I was worried about I wouldn't have the self-motivation enough to do the job, that I wouldn't get off the couch. And I'd be watching, at that time, Oprah and Donahue. That's been a long time ago. But I was worried about that personally. And if you develop a sedimentary lifestyle, you'll stay there. It's hard to change that. I was blessed, though, because I never realized it. The only time I ever stayed home and watched Oprah and Donahue is because I was sick. And I didn't realize that, but in my mind, I had to get that wrapped around that, no, I was motivated to succeed. Most people are until there's no hope. Going back to Senate Bills 2 and 3 together now. I'll roll the dice any day or bet on these two bills, especially when you factor them in with Amendment 1 passing and us getting rid of the personal property tax on equipment, machinery, automobiles, and inventory, to being an accelerant for job opportunities, to be able to keep our youth that are paging for us today in West Virginia with gainful employment. And when those businesses move here or expand here, or we're thinking about leaving here, this is another tool in our tool basket that makes it work. 688 pages of what we've done for business in the state of West Virginia over the last 7 years. Senate Bills 2 and 3 will end up in that book. By the way, Nucor got this via text and PDF on first contact. It's a sales tool. I'm proud of our state. I'm proud of our people in our state. Our people are hardworking people. They want to go to work. But making it so that your workforce can be absent when there are job opportunities, and we can go anywhere, any place in this state and see help wanted signs, bonuses, and the wages are up. Most wages right now in this state are showing $5 an hour over the state's minimum wage. $5 an hour above the minimum wage. My argument about demand on the workforce driving the wages up is evident by what we're dealing with here. But we want it to be evident 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. We cannot drive this vehicle, this ship of state, by looking at the hood ornament. We have to look out into the distance, predict and adapt to the changing world that we live in. Senate Bills 2 and 3 do that. And they're beneficial to our people that are working in this state. It's beneficial to our employers in this state. It's beneficial to our taxpayers in the state. Everybody wins. I won't be asking tomorrow, but I'm asking today for each of you in here to consider. Now, I'm asking you to vote for Senate Bills 2 and 3. I've seen in the past where it was told that the sky was going to fall. The sky's not going to fall. We prevent that. Every person in here cares about the worker in West Virginia. I know I do. I know you do. We're not in the business of hurting the workers or the businesses, but we are in the business of changing the way things are done in this state. And clinging to the past, failures are going to get us nowhere. Having my eyes wide open, moving forward into the future, is what will propel our people to being one of the absolute best states in the Union. Dream big, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks by members. Junior Senator from the 16th.
Yes, sir. I've got a couple of questions. One of the things that we heard in committee was that the unemployment folks do not have enough people to comply with this law, that you have to show proof. Two problems with proof seem to be so many of our jobs you apply for on a computer. How do you have proof of that? Do you take a screenshot? Will that be acceptable? And the other part of it is they feel they do not have enough people working in the unemployment insurance part of our state, the bureaucracy, to comply with this. So I'd appreciate some answer for that, please, sir.
I'm going to make a little note here since I came from just back there. I'm not here, I didn't mean to be debating the bill, but I'm going to have the senior senator from the 4th respond to your question. Then, again, I didn't mean to stir it up so that we're going to debate the bill today. That was not the purpose. It's that I can't debate tomorrow. Senior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. When we had the Deputy Director of Workforce and Senate Finance Committee, the question did come up whether or not proof is required. There is no proof requirements in order to continue to draw the employment of the search. It's just that you have to go in and say that you did. So there's no proof required that's going in. They also mentioned that they could take, and did have the capability, to take any of the applications in either by phone, mail, internet. They said they had all kinds of resources for people to be able to access that. So that we did cover that in Finance Committee. I just want to make that clear.
Further remarks by members. Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to take a moment to honor a West Virginia hero who passed over the weekend, LJ Joe Trupo. Many of you will remember from being in West Virginia like I have, was a lawman in this state for nearly 50 years. He served in the Marine Corps during World War II. We named a bridge for his older brother who served in World War II and was on many of the Pacific landings that helped us win against the Japanese. Joe Trupo was a unique individual. In Braxton County, which was in my district up until the last redistricting, at one time when he was stationed there, they had put up a sign made of stone on the side of a hill that said, "God save us from Trupo." That's the kind of guy he was. He'd just soon take off his badge and put down his gun and have it out with a suspect, then he would arrest him and bring him in. He was a unique individual. Bigger than life. He would always tell you exactly what he thought and would never mince words, would never tell you something he didn't believe was absolutely true. And after a long life, a good life, he passed away on Saturday. His son, Mike, is a 25-year veteran of the state police force. He's retired. And his grandson works in my county now as a law enforcement officer. With your permission, Mr. President, I'd like to stand and have a moment of silence for LJ Joe Trupo.
Please rise. Members and guests. Thank you. Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. Related, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for the families of one of our colleagues today. The senator from Jefferson is gathering with her family after they've had a very difficult couple of weeks, and I know they are all on our hearts and minds today. So could the Senate please join in a moment of silence for the senator from Jefferson and her family during their time of grief.
Please rise. Thank you. Senator from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to ask unanimous consent that the remarks by the senior senator from the 12th and the remarks by the minority leader please be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would request unanimous consent that the remarks by the senior senator from the 15th on Senate Bills 2 and 3 be printed in the appendix to the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Further remarks by members. Miscellaneous business. Senior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Are there announcements? Senior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Finance will meet today at 3 p.m. in room 451M. We'll have a budget hearing from the Department of Tourism.
Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Judiciary will also meet today at 3 o'clock p.m. in the Judiciary Committee Room 208 in the West Wing.
Further announcements. Senator from Wyoming.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Natural Resources will meet at 1 in 208 West today.
Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure will meet tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock in the Finance Committee room.
Further announcements. Senator from Wood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Banking and Insurance will meet today at 2 o'clock in room 451M.
Further announcements. Senator from Logan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Independent Insurance Association is having a reception this evening at 5 o'clock at the Omega office. Please attend.
Further announcements. If not, the question before the Senate stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow. All those in favor say aye. Those no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Hello, everyone. It's February the 7th, and on Monday, I can see on the screen my tie's all screwed up here. Let me halfway get this straight. I don't know if I'm going the right way or the wrong way, but I know I'm going the wrong way now. All right, we'll try that. Maybe that looks a little bit better. Nevertheless, it's February the 7th. We have lost 31 additional people in West Virginia. I ask for your prayers. I ask for all the respect and honor of these great people and everything. The great West Virginians we've lost. Now we've lost 5,877 West Virginians. I'll read through those. The 5,847th death, an 87-year-old female from Kanawha County. The 5,848th death, an 89-year-old female from Raleigh County. The 5,849th death, a 65-year-old female from Greenbrier County. The 5,850th death, a 69-year-old female from Grant County. The 5,851st death, a 98-year-old male from Wood County. The 5,852nd death, a 92-year-old male from Jefferson County. The 5,853rd death, a 78-year-old male from Jefferson County. The 5,854th death, a 71-year-old female from McDowell County. The 5,855th death, a 77-year-old female from Wayne County. The 5,856th death, a 77-year-old male from Kanawha County. The 5,857th death, a 70-year-old female from Roane County. The 5,858th death, a 67-year-old male from Berkeley County. The 5,859th death, a 68-year-old male from Harrison County. The 5,860th death, a 75-year-old male from Raleigh County. The 5,861st death, a 58-year-old male from Morgan County. The 5,862nd death, an 85-year-old male from Jefferson County. The 5,863rd death, an 85-year-old male from Raleigh County. The 5,864th death, an 88-year-old female from Raleigh County. The 5,865th death, a 74-year-old male from Kanawha County. The 5,866th death, 63-year-old male from Preston County. The 5,867th death, an 83-year-old male from Raleigh County. The 5,868th death, a 78-year-old male from Raleigh County. The 5,869th death, a 59-year-old female from Kanawha County. The 5,870th death, a 74-year-old female from Mingo County. The 5,871st death, a 77-year-old male from Mineral County. The 5,872nd death, an 89-year-old male from Raleigh County. The 5,873rd death, a 72-year-old female from Webster County. The 5,874th death, a 66-year-old male from Kanawha County. The 5,875th death, a 79-year-old female from Nicholas County. The 5,876th death, a 73-year-old male from Raleigh County. And the 5,877th death, a 73-year-old male from Kanawha County. You can see from this, and I'm just going to check back real quickly. Remember what I told you the other day, that the deaths appear to be trending back towards our elderly people, and we've lost so many of our elderly, that really and truly, what that would tell me is if you've had so many of your elderly people that we've lost and so many that we have vaccinated, right at 90% of them, there's a lot of them that are not getting their booster shot. I don't know how many of these folks did not have their booster shot, but I can tell you in just what I just read today, we had 2 people that were in their 50s, one 59 and I believe one 58. Everybody else is 60, 70, 80, and 90 years old. We only had 2 people of the 31 people that I read here. A 58-year-old was the youngest of all of them. This thing is preying on our older people. If we don't get our booster shots, you know, those people really are in real jeopardy. We have 10,000 active cases now. We're down to 1,273 new positive cases. We didn't test hardly any. Our positivity rate, 29.26%. Our cumulative rate is at 8.25. We have almost 450,000 people in West Virginia that have recovered from COVID. We've dropped down under 1,000 now in our hospitals to 986. We still have 214 people in the ICU units and 120 on ventilators. The red counties are still coming down. You know, we now have 4 green counties, which is awfully, awfully good. And you'll see, and I think probably the best time is to now show these charts and everything, these graphs that you had, Jordan, and everything, and you'll see it's really easy to see if you'll just look at it and everything. This is West Virginia, and if you'll look at the top line or the bottom line, you'll see the surge that went way up, and you see it moving down, and it moving down pretty aggressively. If you'll show them the U.S. chart, please, Jordan. Do you have that? There you go. That's the U.S. chart, and you'll see the same thing. You'll see a very significant drop-off in everything, and we're very, very hopeful of both. And so it looks like what Dr. Marsh said to us probably a week ago, that we're starting to move in a good direction with all this, and let's just stay on top of it and keep fighting it and everything. And I just remind our elderly people, our elderly folks, it's your decision. It's your decision not to get that booster shot. It's your decision. But you can tell by the number or the numbers on the folks that we're reading, their ages and everything, that those are the people right now that are really, really in harm's way. We want to thank our National Guard in so many ways, but they have 290 Guard members that are deployed in 34 facilities. Great, great work. We want to remind everybody, if you want to get those 4 free home test kits and everything, all you got to do is just get a hold of us at covidtest.gov, and we'll get them to you. Your free N95 mask should be available to you right now for every person if you'll go to the pharmacies. From the standpoint of our antibodies, I've told you before about the FDA discontinuing 2 of them. We still have others. One of them is 2 oral pills, and so we do have antibodies to combat this virus. If you would just take advantage of the free testing, and absolutely, if we can catch this early enough, we'll try to get you those antibodies. They're in semi-short supply, but we do have enough, and I think we're moving in a positive direction on that. There's no point in going through. I don't have any new updates on the letter that we sent up along with the governor of Virginia, Governor Youngkin, and to the CMS and asking for a waiver in regard to our rural hospitals. Now, that waiver will not come from from the standpoint of just saying, okay, we'll just allow, or we'll go back to where you don't have to be vaccinated at all. It won't come that way. We will get an extension of time or some level of consideration, that the formula that they use may be tweaked just a little bit or something like that. But anything we can get to where we can keep these people on the job, we need them desperately. Okay, I've told you about, if you feel any conditions whatsoever unusual and you're 65 and above, absolutely get tested, please. And we do have antibodies that can help you, but get tested. I encourage you about wearing your mask if you're in a crowd, people that you don't know, you're indoors, you're 65 and older, and you've got symptoms of some kind, or pre-existing conditions rather, whether it be heart, lungs, could be diabetes, weight, and anything. If you have those situations, you may really ought to consider wearing that mask. Over and over, I tell you about the booster shots. It's like a broken record, I know, but I've said it a million times. I don't get it. I don't get how you can make a decision to get vaccinated 2 different times and absolutely be told over and over and over, they're not doing you any good now, and really and truly wait on the booster shot, especially if you're over 65, and absolutely put it on pause and not take it. I do not get it at all, because it will absolutely protect you beyond belief, and we know that. We absolutely know that just as clearly as anything in the world, but just if you'll just think about it, just think about just this. The number of folks that are dying, the number of folks that are hospitalized. This may not prevent you from getting it, but it will absolutely help you in every way to prevent you from maybe going to the hospital or absolutely dying. So good numbers on one thing here. We have now reached 71%. We were at like 70.3 and 70.4, and finally we made it to 70.9. Now we're at 71% of the 18 and olders that have had 1 shot. We're at 82.5 on the 50 and olders, and we're at 89.8 now on our 65 and olders, and that's good. Still not as fast as we want it to be, but we're still penetrating. We're still absolutely getting people along the way. From the standpoint of your COVID-19 vaccine info line, it's all up on our website. Free testing, take advantage. We always thank Frith and Walgreens for all that they've done. The long-term care facilities, 161 outbreaks now, 1 in the church community, still in Nicholas County. Corrections still have 919 inmate cases at 25 facilities and 234 staff cases. I remind you about the rental program and everything from the standpoint, if you're a renter or landlord, take advantage of this. For crying out loud, call us. We can probably put some real money in your pocket if you can qualify. I remind you about giving blood. It's so important and everything, and desperately important at this time. Now, I asked you for your condolences for a gentleman that I didn't know very well, but I knew him and everything. He was a Kanawha County commissioner. He was a delegate. We'll miss this man. This was a kind man. He's Hoppy Shores, and he served 42 years as a commissioner in Kanawha County. And he was elected in 1966 and served 42 years. It's just amazing. That's all there is to it. Hoppy was, I think, 91 years old. I'm gonna miss that. But the biggest thing, he was elected in 1986 to the House of Delegates and served till 1990. He just, the most profound thing that I think could ever be said about somebody we lost was he's a good man, a kind man, a man really and truly that served this incredible state in many ways. But when you step back and just think, as you go, if people could look on you as a good person, a person that was kind in his words or her words, a person that reached out and tried to serve and tried to help. That's what this man did. I don't know how it could be any better. So we'll be, Kathy and I will surely be offering our prayers, and as I ask all West Virginians to join in that, and we'll be issuing a proclamation to lower the flags to half staff on the day of his funeral. This one, and Hoppy was 92 years old. They've sent me a little note. He was 92. This one right here, we celebrate an incredible life that Hoppy gave us, and all the incredible stuff that he did. This one right here is really sad too. And it takes on a completely different dimension to me. Because I just think, you know, how terrible this is, because this life is snuffed out and gone so early. We lost another correctional officer. This is our fourth, I think. It's a 31-year-old man. His name, Corporal Christopher Scarberry. He was working at the Western Regional Jail in Cabell County and had been there since 2018. He was hospitalized with this virus in December, and he died on Sunday. I'm sure he fought an incredible fight, but really and truly, 31 years old. He's survived by his wife and 3 stepchildren. Absolutely, Kathy and I, in every way, offer up our prayers, our condolences to the family and all those. And there's no question that from the very, very beginning, our correctional officers did run to the fire, did they not? They came to work all the time. They absolutely took care of our inmates, and they absolutely took care of their families and all kinds of people at the same time. I just hate it. I hate to be emotional about it, but I just think about my kids. I think this is just a kid. I mean, for crying out loud, with all kinds of life in front of him. We'll surely miss him. Christopher, I'll promise you we won't forget you. And absolutely, I ask everybody to remember him in your prayers, your thoughts, and absolutely all of his loved ones, especially these kids and his wonderful wife. So nevertheless, I hate this, but that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Governor. Let's now go to Dr. Clay Marsh, our coronavirus czar.
Well, good morning. And following up with what the governor has said, I think it is important to note, both in our country and in our state, it does look like the number of new cases now have definitely started on the decline. Again, we are a bit behind the rest of the country, particularly the urban parts of the country, maybe as much as 3 weeks behind or so, 2 to 3 weeks. We know that our hospitalizations, which still are hanging in that 990 to 1,000 range, which is something for us to still pay attention to. But we do know that nationally the hospitalizations are going down. The U.S. had the unfortunate finding of passing 900,000 deaths from COVID-19. And at an average daily number, even today, versus the Delta surge, we see more people dying on average each day still from the Omicron variant than we did from the Delta variant. And given the timing of the cases going down, the hospitalizations and lagging a little bit and going down, and then the deaths being the last thing to peak and then go down, we know that we are in a really important moment for West Virginia. Really important data just came out of Israel that basically compared people who got 2 doses of the COVID vaccine. And again, remember, Israel is mostly a country that relies on Pfizer vaccines as the mRNA vaccine of choice. So comparing people that got 2 doses versus people that got 3 doses. And what they found was that at all ages, the 3 doses, the booster dose, was really, really important and reduced the risk of having COVID infection significantly by about 14 times or so. And also importantly, protected people, particularly people over 60 years old, of getting severe illness, hospitalization, and that was by about 17 times. And reduce the risk of death, again, about 14, 15 times. And again, this is people that got 2 doses versus that got 2 doses plus a booster. So it does underscore the importance of getting that booster. And as we've talked about many times, the vaccines lose some of their potency after about 4 to 6 months of the first 2 doses. And that's the reason why getting that booster dose after 5 months after your initial vaccines with either Pfizer or Moderna, or 2 months after your initial vaccine with Johnson & Johnson are really, really important. And as we go forward, more and more data is coming out about the impact of vaccination rates in the United States. And we now are the country of all the westernized, richer countries. We lead the world in deaths from COVID-19, and half of our deaths have occurred after the vaccines have become available. So we know very well that getting vaccinated, getting boosted is really important to reduce hospitalizations and importantly, save lives. And given the fact that we think we're entering now this hospitalization and death component of the surge from the Omicron variant, it is really important to take advantage of this time frame to get boosted if you haven't been boosted. And please, particularly if you're over 50 years old, if you haven't been vaccinated, get vaccinated immediately. But if you've been vaccinated and it's 5 months since that last vaccine, please consider getting boosted. Really important right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Marsh. Next to Dr. Ainam Jad, our State Health Officer.
Good morning. I just want to remind everyone that while we do encourage all our elderly population to get their vaccine and boosters, as Dr. Marsh mentioned, we do want to remind everyone, if you're 5 years and older, to get your vaccine. Our children in West Virginia are very important. They are the future of West Virginia. And if your children have not gotten their vaccines, to get their vaccine. And also, we have noticed that the boosters have not been people have not gotten their boosters as we would like, and that a lot of people, if they have gotten COVID, they may think that they do not need to get their booster, but you still need to get your booster dose even if you have gotten COVID. We do know that it is important. So even if you have gotten your 2 doses of your COVID vaccine, or if you've had gotten COVID, you still need to go out and get your booster dose. It is very important in order to remain out of the hospital. Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you, Doctor. Secretary Bill Crouch with the DHHR is also joining us today and is available for questions. Retired Major General Jim Hoyer had a prior engagement and will rejoin us on Wednesday. We'll now go to questions from members of the media. The first today from Kenny Bass with WCHS and Fox 11.
Thank you for taking my question. I will note that with the new total of deaths we have, that number would be the 28th largest city or census area in West Virginia. To put it into some context, it just passed Princeton. So more than the entire population of Princeton. A couple of quick questions. One, where are we on the letter asking for the 4th booster from the government? I know that we hadn't heard much. Have we heard anything? And 2, to Dr. Marsh, along those lines, what would be the medical reasons for not having a 4th booster shot? We just don't know what it would do, long-term impact. No studies have been done. What are the hurdles in the way? And secondly, to Dr. Marsh, when you say you're 5 months out of your vaccine, you should get your booster shot. Well, I'm now 7 months out of my booster shot. So am I just good luck? And if you get it, hope you don't die, fat guy? Or, I mean, is there some dispensation being thought that a 4th booster shot is the answer? Or we just finished the 3rd and you roll the dice? Thank you.
Dr. Marsh, please.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, Kenny. So as we start to look at the data using an additional booster shot, really most of that data comes from Israel. And Israel has been a world leader in really pushing the vaccines, along with working with Pfizer, pushing the vaccines and really informing the rest of the world the benefits and the challenges. And what we found from Israel is that offering a 4th vaccine, particularly to people over 60 years old. I think they've opened it up now to all ages, and they are timing that 4 months after the previous vaccine. So this is 4 doses, and we would call that the original 2 dose, then a booster, and now another booster dose. They found about a 50% reduction in new infections. They tested children mainly. And they also found a threefold decrease in their elder population over 60 in hospitalizations. So we do believe that there is a benefit there. And as you said, Kenny, our concern is the loss of potency that we can see from the vaccines after a 4 to 6 month period of time. What data coming from other places, including the US, is that having a booster dose, the 3 doses, if you took the first two, Moderna or Pfizer, having that next dose that is now 5 months after the first 2 doses, still is a very significant protector of against hospitalization and death. 99% protective against death, about 96% protective against hospitalization. What the real question, and what we asked the White House and the FDA, CDC to consider, would be to look to understand in a different population in America, and West Virginia represents an older, more chronically ill population, whether or not we wouldn't have seen an increase in the impact and the benefit of being able to give that additional booster 4 months after the last shot. To my understanding or information, we have not really received much of a response. We do believe that would have some benefit, but currently there is no FDA or CDC guidance to get that next vaccine. And I think the reason why is because there is data suggesting the benefits still of the 3rd dose, the first booster dose, that may have more perpetuating impact. And that is something that, particularly as we see more people who are breaking through, from vaccination, both in getting infected, and even if you look at our DHHR data, which we're following up, if we look at the hospitalizations, ICU admissions, or ventilated patients, we're seeing a higher percent of those people being vaccinated. We don't know if they've been all boosted or not. We're trying to find that out. And we look at the vaccine breakthrough deaths, we can see these are in older West Virginians over 61. So Kenny, good question. We don't have any information back as far as I know, but I do think that there is a rationale to still consider that regimen, adding another booster for people, particularly over 50 years old who are greater than 4 months out from their last boost.
All right, thank you, Kenny. Next, we'll go to Paul Mullen with WCBC.
Good morning, everybody. Governor, last time you busted my chops when I admitted that I got a Johnson & Johnson vaccine instead of the other 2. And I'm going to ask the question, kind of taking off on Kenny saying that he's a fat guy. Well, maybe I'm a moron for doing that. But I want to know, I did have the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I did consider the booster. I didn't get the booster because I said, boy, if Johnson & Johnson only gave me 2 months, if I get the booster, is it going to give me another 2 months? And what real good is that? And by the time they make up their mind whether I need a 4th booster, how long am I going to be unprotected then? So anyhow, I wound up with COVID in December. And I did get the antibody treatment, and I did stay out of the hospital. But I'm considering now whether I should just start the whole process over and go after a Moderna or a Pfizer vaccine after I get through the 90 days after my COVID infection. I'd like to get some medical advice from our panel here on what I should do. I mean, I'm not happy with the 2-month thing. I'd like to go and start the process over again, but am I allowed to do that? Is there any risk at going back to the beginning and saying, hey, I'd like to go with Moderna or Pfizer? So I throw myself on the mercy of the medical court.
Well, Paul, let me say this, I think you're anything but a moron. You're really a smart guy and a good man and a good friend. But I want to say this to you too. I love your question because, to tell you the truth, there's a lot of people in the same boat you're in. A lot of people are confused, and that's why we keep we keep getting more and more and more people across the finish line. If all we had was those that were out there that said, no way, no matter what, no way, then we wouldn't see this steady improvement. And so there's a lot of people that have a lot of questions and a lot of concerns, and I'm going to pass now to, I guess Dr. Amjad and Dr. Marsh, and let them give you their very, very best advice. But I love your question, because it's the kind of questions that we want, where we can clarify stuff for people and give people a pathway. So Dr. Marsh or Dr. Amjad, y'all please.
And you want to start and I'll follow, or do you want me to start?
You go ahead, Clay, because I think this is a little bit, it's a different answer, I think, now than what we used to give out.
Yeah, so Paul, thank you for your question, and thank you, Governor. So Paul, the fact that you got Johnson & Johnson when it first came out was a very reasonable decision, and one that, all of the recommending bodies, oversight bodies, FDA, CDC, certainly were in favor of. The fact that you have not gotten your booster shot, but you did get a COVID infection, was, again, activation of your immune system. And the fact that you got monoclonal antibodies and are better is really great news. If I were you at the time that you would feel comfortable and you could wait the 3 months as was originally suggested for the monoclonal antibodies, or to me, at this point, since you're over a month from that treatment, you could consider getting another shot. And that shot should further activate your immune system. What we've seen, particularly in Europe, from folks who did get Johnson & Johnson or an affiliate vaccine from AstraZeneca, both with the same kind of technology, that the persistence of benefit, particularly to hospitalizations and severe disease, was good if you got the appropriate boosting dose. So instead of starting over, I think you would be fine, at whatever time you are comfortable and your healthcare provider to go ahead and get another shot. I would personally choose Moderna based on the data that we have seen with Johnson & Johnson boost, but I would either get a Moderna or a Pfizer vaccine. And I think you could get it now, or you could wait for the 3 months after your monoclonal antibody treatment. Either should be fine and should really continue to activate your immune system, since the infection likely reminded your immune system. So this will be an additional empowerment of the immune system, which I think should serve you fine. So I don't think you need to start over. I don't know if you have any other comments.
No, I think what's happening out in the medical community is that a lot of physicians are telling patients to wait the full 3 months after a COVID infection or getting the monoclonal antibodies. And I don't think you need to wait. And I think that's what we want people to know, is that you don't have to wait the full 3 months. You can, but we're seeing a lot of breakthrough infections out there because everyone's body is different. And I think that's what we need to remind people, is that with these different variants out there, some people are getting breakthrough infections. So you don't need to wait the full 3 months after COVID, whether you've gotten antibodies or a COVID infection. If you're able to go ahead and get the vaccine, we would recommend it, is what I would say. I think that's what the confusion is out there in the public and the medical community. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Paul. Next, we'll go to Charles Young with WV News.
Hi, this is Charles Young with WV News. I was hoping to get a little bit of an update about the response at our long-term care facilities. I know the governor said we have 161 outbreaks that we're dealing with. So I was just wondering, what is that like on a day-to-day basis? I know, in the earliest days of the pandemic, we were dispatching the National Guard from outbreak to outbreak, doing deep cleaning. I was just wondering what the day-to-day is like now. Thank you.
Terry Crouch, why don't you take this, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Governor, and thank you, Charles. We've seen a reduction in the number of individuals who are positive right now, but if you look at the dashboard, we still have 676 active staff right now who are infected. We have 234 patients there. And as Clay's talked about and the governor's talked about, we're seeing more and more individuals who are elderly who are having breakthrough cases. We're seeing more in being admitted to the hospital right now, which is very concerning. But overall, these vaccines protect individuals and they protect people. So the differences from early on, I think, are kind of the same everywhere, whether it's acute care or long-term care. Everybody's gotten a little more comfortable in dealing with this virus, and but everyone's being very careful. We've got more individuals vaccinated, more staff vaccinated at the nursing homes. As you know, we were the first. Governor charged on this and made sure that we made our elderly population the priority in West Virginia. We were the first in the country to get them vaccinated. We're still trying to make sure that those folks are safe. And I want to say, in terms of the staff out there, the staff of the nursing homes, gosh, these folks are heroes. They go into those buildings every day, and they just do an extraordinary job. We have a weekly meeting with the long-term care folks where we discuss the status of the facilities and where they are. We make sure they have enough test kits. We provide those from the state directly. We make sure they have enough monoclonal antibodies or access to antivirals. So we have a great partnership and a great relationship there. So overall, the change has been relaxing a little bit to deal with this virus, but also staying on our toes and making sure people are safe.
All right, thank you, Charles. Next to Evan Bevins with Ogden Newspapers.
Thank you. Just wanted to ask, as we see the active case numbers going down, thankfully, is there concern that people may, relax again, or should people be relaxing? I guess what's your advice to people as to what phase we're in now? What would you say to people as they see the numbers going down in terms of vaccinations, masking, and precautions? Thank you.
Please.
Who do you want, Governor?
No, Dr. Marsh, please.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Evan. So we would certainly recommend for our vulnerable West Virginians to still be very careful. Omicron, the RT value in West Virginia, the reproductive value, the spread has now been below 1 for the last 5 to 7 days, which is great. The new cases are starting to reduce. But we know that still people are getting infected with the Omicron variant, which is incredibly infectious, and people are getting sick. And the governor can testify to the fact that this is not just a benign, don't worry about it kind of infection if you get it. And so particularly for our West Virginians over 50 years old, over 65 years old, please get your booster. That is the most important thing you can do to protect yourself if you haven't gotten it yet. And only about 57 or 58% of our over 65-year-olds have had a boost dose, and only about 52% of our eligible over 50-year-olds have had a boost dose. And if you're going out, particularly indoor environments, wear a high-quality mask, and we would recommend either an N95 mask that has that NIOSH, N-I-O-S-H approval on the side, or a KN95 mask that would have the stamping of GB2929 dash, and then it would have 2019, which is the most recent year that's been upgraded. So make sure you have good face masks that have been verified as to their authenticity. But this is no time to stop being thoughtful and careful, particularly if you're in the vulnerable age group. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Evan. Governor, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, I'll start, and we're going to work backwards here and everything. Dr. Marsh said that the governor would testify that this has not just been a benign nothing. If you do get this and you're older than 50 or whatever it may be, you can bet on that. From my standpoint, it was anything but just easy stuff. For a couple days it was bad. It was really bad. I never thought, that it was life-threatening, because I really had a lot of trust and faith in the vaccines and the booster that I'd already had, but it wasn't any fun. And I just can't imagine. I can't imagine, you know, how people feel laying in the hospital or whatever and gasping for breath. You know, just, and so please take heed to all these real superstar experts that we have and the good stuff that they're telling you. You know, I think it is significant that we think about just for a second that our nation's lost in excess of 900,000 people. And you know, we do celebrate the fact that this surge that we're in right now, the curve indicates, and I underline indicates, that we're really now starting to move in a better direction. And that's really good. You know, I think it's really important to note what Kenny Bass said. Kenny, I think, said that now that we have lost 5,877 people, that is equivalent to the 27th largest city that we have in West Virginia if you lost everybody there. If everybody died. That surpassed Princeton, West Virginia. If every single person in Princeton, West Virginia died, I mean, can you imagine the magnitude of that number? The magnitude of 5,877 people. It's just a lot of great West Virginians we've lost, and it is really sad. You know, I'm sure that you picked up on Dr. Marsh's, you know, comments about a fourth dose. You know, all we can do is follow the science. All we can do is follow the knowledge that comes to us from all over the globe. Israel has really been a leader. There's no question in all this, and they've moved forward with their fourth dose, and they've seen incredible results from the standpoint of the fourth dose. You know, especially on people 50 and above. And so in trying to protect those people and trying to do what's right for those people and everything, we sent up a request, you know, for permission and or a waiver to be able to give that fourth dose. And we still, I mean, you know how Washington is, everybody. It's just, it's a shame. But we still get, you know, just lip service, and we don't get answers. And so all we can do is continue to try for you, and that's what we're going to continue to do. But nevertheless, I ask that you'll remember Hoppy Shores. I ask that you'll remember an incredible 31-year-old that we lost from corrections. And I think his name was Christopher Scarberry, and I want to make sure, yes, that's right. And nevertheless, but I ask that you'll absolutely remember all these 5,877 folks. So nevertheless, that's all I've got. We're going to get through this, West Virginia. One way or another, we're going to get through it. We're going to get through it well. So thank you so much.
Obedience today. May ours be a state that is governed into your divine plan. May we not reject your design, but embrace it to influence the decisions made here today. Ordain every word out of our lips, guide our attitudes, and inspire our hearts to make wise decisions for our people. Father, we pray for those who we have heard recently that have been sick and diagnosed with an illness or are afflicted by COVID. We pray that your hands would be upon them today. Holy God, you have commanded us to carry forth your divine loving purpose. Give us patience with one another. Grant us favor before your throne. And above all, may we honor you today. Now, Father, open our hearts that we might hear from you and walk in the obedience of your word, that we might delight in your presence and remain in your way. In the strong name of your Son, Jesus the Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Members and guests will please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance as we are led by the gentleman in the 32nd, Douglas Fast.
Please join me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members and guests may be seated. Reading the journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Thursday, February 3rd, 2022.
Gentleman, 32nd, Douglas Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read.
The gentleman, 32nd, Douglas Haynes, asks unanimous consent that the further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Are there objections? There are no objections. Introductions. Introductions. Gentleman, 43rd, Douglas Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today with us we have Brody Van Devender. He's paging with us. He's on that side over there. He is a student at Midland Elementary School in Elkins, West Virginia. He is escorted today by his parents, Christy and Jason Van Devender. Brody, if you'd stand up, and Christy and Jason, if you guys would stand up, and the House, please make them feel welcome.
Lady, 32nd, Dr. Kessinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we are joined by some amazing West Virginians who are here to advocate for the sanctity of human life. And so if they would stand up and the House make them welcome.
The gentleman, 56, Douglas Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the West Gallery is my beautiful wife, Kristen K. Howell. Please stand, and if she would make her feel welcome.
The gentleman, 27th, Douglas Ellington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Mercer County delegates, we have one of our pages with us, Ashton Beck from Princeton Middle School, if he'd rise. And he is attended by his chaperone, Judith Small, that may be up in the gallery, if the House would make them feel welcome.
The gentleman, 63rd, Douglas Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise with a heavy heart. I was hoping that we could take a moment of silence here. We'd gotten a message that our friend and our colleague, Delegate Horst, unexpectedly lost his daughter. And so I'm just heartbroken for my friend and my roommate and our fellow colleagues. So if we could just take a moment here to think about him and his family and what they're going through. Thank you very much.
This time, the chair will ask all members and all of our guests today to please join us to please rise and join us as the House observes a brief moment of silence. Thank you. Members and guests may be seated. Gentleman, 32nd, Douglas Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the North Gallery, I would like to recognize, you saw my pastor that led us in prayer today, but his wife, BJ, if she would stand and the House make her welcome. And I would also like to recognize my lovely wife, Lisa, and I'm so proud of her and thank her for being here. If she would please stand and the House make her welcome.
The gentleman, 31st, Douglas Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have 4 pages here today. Haley Cantley from Trap Hill Middle School, Katie Cantley from Trap Hill Middle School, Mason Cantley from Clear Fork Elementary, and they're escorted by their grandmother, Blanche, is in the North Gallery. And also, on behalf of the other Raleigh County delegates, we have Melanie Ferguson. She's from Shady Spring High School, and her mother's in the back gallery from Laura. If they would all stand and House make them feel welcome.
The gentleman, 7th, Douglas Barnhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. Paging for us today from Pleasant County Middle School, we have Destiny Gray, and she is joined by her father, Michael Gray. And I would ask that they please stand, that the House stand, and make them feel welcome today. Welcome to the Capitol.
The gentleman, 13th, Douglas Pinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have some guests from Mason County here today, and they're in the North Gallery, so I can't see them and they can't see me, but I know that they're there. As I call their name, if they'd please stand, Miss Gabby Fuller, joined by her daughters, Elena Laura, Mariah, and Autumn, as well as their foster daughter, is with them. They're here for Pro-Life Day. And then also my friend and colleague, Pastor Ted Vance, if he'd please stand, and if the House would please make these friends feel welcome.
The gentleman to the 11th, Dr. Keaton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning, we're joined by a couple of pages from Roane County. If you'll please stand and be recognized whenever I call your name. Mr. Hunter Harpold, Jeffrey White, Allegra Keaton, and Madeline Elliott. They're joined by their chaperone, Mrs. Sandy Cooper, the legendary Roane County Elementary School teacher, Mrs. Sandy Cooper. If the House will please make them feel welcome. Thanks. And very briefly, I'd like to also recognize here in the North Gallery, St. Patrick's Elementary School pro-life group, chaperoned by Father Doug Ondeck and my lovely girlfriend, Miss Sadie Shields. Please stand and will the House make them welcome.
The gentleman from the 18th, Dr. Worrell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everyone. Today we have a page from Butlersville Elementary, C.J. Pennington, if he would stand, and his mother is joined with us in the West Gallery, Christina Pennington. The House will please make them feel welcome. And then also, Mr. Speaker, in the South Gallery, you have the oldest of my 6 children, my daughter Faith, who's here studying for her social work. If the House will please make her feel welcome as well. Thank you.
The gentleman 26, Dr. Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I have 3 pages with me. I'd like to introduce Miss Aubrey Mars from Mount View Middle School, if you'll stand, Aubrey. And she is chaperoned by Miss Christy Glass. We also have Sophie Glass from Mount View Middle School, and she is chaperoned by her mother, Christy. And we have Terry Small on the far side over there, and he is chaperoned by his grandmother, Judith Small. Will you please make these fine sons and daughters of McDowell County welcome?
The gentleman second, Dr. DeSerio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning. Joining us today in the South Gallery, it's my honor to introduce to you our Brooke County Commissioners. If you'd stand when I call your name. Stacy Ukel-Wise, A.J. Thomas, and Commissioner and former Delegate Tim Ennis. Welcome all.
Ladyman 35th, Dr. Young.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning I have a page with me from Charleston Catholic. Her name is Emily Bowden. If she would stand, please. Her chaperone, her mom's up in the West Gallery. So if everybody would make her feel welcome.
The gentleman 36, Dr. Barrick.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Today I have a page here from right here in Kanawha County. Alexander Blaylock, why don't you stand up, from Horseman Middle School, and I believe his parents Matthew and Jessica Blaylock are up in the West Gallery. Stand up and everyone give them a very warm welcome. Thank you.
The gentleman 19th, Dr. Griffith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I have a guest, Vinny Richards, if he would please stand. He's a Marshall University student and majoring in sociology, and is a wonderful resident of Canova, West Virginia. Thank you.
Are there any additional introductions at this time? Reports of standing committees.
Originating in the Committee on the Judiciary and reported with the recommendation that it do pass is House Bill 4522 relating to the expungement of criminal records.
Report to be received.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration House Bill 4012 prohibiting the showing of proof of a COVID-19 vaccination and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but that it first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
That report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration House Bill 4089, requires certain coverage and reimbursement for a person diagnosed with hypertension, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but that it first be referred to the Committee on Finance.
That report will be received pursuant to House Rule 80. That bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration House Bill 4373 to exclude fentanyl test strips from the definition of drug paraphernalia and reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that it do pass as amended, but that it first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
That report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Energy and Manufacturing has had under consideration House Bill 4480, granting the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection Division of Air Quality the authority to invest the money held in certain funds, and reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that it do pass as amended, but that it first be referred to the Committee on Finance.
That report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4098 relating to geothermal energy development and reports back a committee substitute therefore with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
That report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4032 modifying the criminal penalties imposed on a parent, guardian, or custodian for child abuse, and House Bill 4297 to facilitate the sharing of information between the Department of Health and Human Resources and the State Auditor's Office in order to investigate reports of financial abuse and neglect of a vulnerable adult, and reports by committee substitutes therefore with the recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
That report will be received.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration House Bill 4011 establishing the Anti-Stereotyping Act and reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass as amended, but that it first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
That report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 4165 authorizing the State Tax Department to promulgate a legislative rule relating to the exemption for repair, remodeling, and maintenance of aircraft, and House Bill 4168 authorizing the Tax Department to promulgate a legislative rule relating to the corporate net income tax, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass, but that they first be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
That report will be received. Those bills will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 4234 authorizing the Treasurer to promulgate a legislative rule relating to substitute checks, exceptional items fund. House Bill 4235 authorizing the Treasurer to promulgate a legislative rule relating to procedures for deposit of monies with the State Treasurer's Office by state agencies. House Bill 4236 authorizing the Treasurer to promulgate a legislative rule relating to selection of state depositories for disbursement accounts through competitive bidding. House Bill 4237 authorizing the Treasurer to promulgate a legislative rule relating to selection of state depositories for receipt accounts. House Bill 4238 authorizing the Treasurer to promulgate a legislative rule relating to procedures for processing payments from the State Treasury. House Bill 4240 authorizing the Treasurer to promulgate a legislative rule relating to procedures for fees in collections by charge, credit, or debit card or by electronic payment, and House Bill 4241 authorizing the Treasurer to promulgate a legislative rule relating to procedures for providing services to political subdivisions, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass, but that they first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
That report will be received. All those bills will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 4239 authorizing the Treasurer to promulgate a legislative rule relating to reporting debt, and reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that it do pass as amended, but that it first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
That report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Joint Committee on Enrolled Bills has examined, found truly enrolled, and on the 3rd day of February 2022 presented to His Excellency the Governor for his action the following bills signed by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Delegates. Senate Bill 244 relating to appointment of judges to Intermediate Court of Appeals.
That report will be received. Are there further reports of standing committees, select committee reports, executive messages, Senate messages?
The Clerk of the Senate reports that the Senate has adopted the following resolutions. Committee substitute for Senate Concurrent Resolution 17, U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant Logan A. Young Memorial Bridge.
That message will be received. The resolution will be referred to the Committee on Technology and Infrastructure, then the Committee on Rules.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 21, Putnam County Veterans Memorial Bridge.
That message will be received. The resolution will be referred to the Committee on Technology and Infrastructure, then the Committee on Rules.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 23, U.S. Marine Corps Corporal Guy Maywood Edwards Memorial Bridge.
The message will be received. The resolution will be referred to the Committee on Technology and Infrastructure, then the Committee on Rules. Are there further Senate messages, resolutions?
House Concurrent Resolution 46, Donald Homer Wheeler Memorial Bridge.
Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with and that each resolution be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the delegate console system.
The lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that the further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with and that each resolution be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the delegate console system. Are there objections? There are no objections. Petitions? Motions? Bills introduced.
House Bill 4556, Video Camera Law.
Lady in the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with and that each bill be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the delegate console system.
The lady in the 49th asks unanimous consent that the further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with and that each bill be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the delegate console system. Are there objections? There are no objections. Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Senate Bill 435, awarding service weapon to retiree from Division of Protective Services.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. Gentleman 32nd, Douglas Fast, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 435 adds a new section to the West Virginia Code, Chapter 15, Article 2D, that awards a retiree from the Division of Protective Services, and these are our Capitol Police, their service weapon at no charge if the retiree honorably retires with at least 10 years service or the retiree has less than 10 years service but has been determined to be totally physically disabled as a result of retiree service with the division. A weapon will not be awarded to any retiree who is known by the division to be prohibited from possessing a firearm under state or federal law, with whom the division has reason to believe is mentally incapacitated, or whom the division has reason to believe the member constitutes a danger to any person or to the community. The bill provides that service weapons taken out of service due to routine wear may be sold to any active or retired division member at fair market value. The proceeds from such sale may be used by the director to offset the cost of new service weapons. That is a summary, Mr. Speaker, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 93 ayes, 0 nays, and 7 members absent. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Senate Bill 435, awarding service weapon to retiree from Division of Protective Services.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the bill take effect from passage.
The lady from the 49th moves that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 93 ayes, 0 nays, and 7 members absent. 2/3 of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 437, providing for early discharge of parolees.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. Gentleman the 35th to explain the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We have currently in West Virginia a mechanism for the early discharge of parolees. With the bill before you, the Senate bill sort of codifies the process in existence and changes one material piece of it. It authorizes the Commissioner of the Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation to request the parole board early release for a parolee in compliance with his or her supervision, and it authorizes the parole board chairperson to approve the request for early discharge from parole. What this bill does materially is it removes the requirement that a panel must review that application, and instead it can be decided upon by the chairperson of the parole board. Mr. Speaker, that's a summarization of the bill, and I'm happy to take questions.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 92 ayes, 2 noes, and 6 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 437, providing for early discharge of parolees.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the bill take effect from passage.
The lady from the 49th moves that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 94 ayes, 0 nays, and 6 members absent. 2/3 of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 449, relating to nonviolent offense parole program.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. Gentleman to 35th to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 449 clarifies that a person sentenced to consecutive sentences, one of which is ineligible for presumptive parole, may not be released under the nonviolent offense parole program. It also clarifies that such persons may still be eligible for a discretionary parole review by a panel of the parole board. And third and finally, it clarifies that a person is not eligible for this program twice while serving the same sentence. Mr. Speaker, that's the bill, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 94 ayes, 0 nays, and 6 members absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 449, relating to nonviolent offense parole program.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the bill take effect from passage.
The question before the House is the motion that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of that motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 94 ayes, 0 nays, and 6 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4003, relating generally to commercial benefit of substances removed from waters of the state by the treatment of mine drainage.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman 35th to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been a long-standing public policy of the state of West Virginia that the Water Pollution Control Act, that the state is compelled to maintain reasonable standards of purity and quality of the waters of the state, which are consistent with public health and the protection of all forms of life. Under the committee substitute before you, the legislature finds that treatment of mine drainage reduces environmental harm by reducing pollution in the waters of the state. The expensive treatment of mine drainage may produce materials that contain valuable concentrations of rare earth elements and critical minerals with commercial value. The legislature finds that these materials are part of the water and can only be separated with expensive investments of resources which may last for decades. The intent of the bill is to fulfill the state's obligation to maintain this to the people of West Virginia, the quality of the water, by encouraging the investments into the treatment of mine drainage. The operative language in the bill is found in sections C and D. The first governs the DEP and the second governs all other parties. The bill decides that all chemical compounds and other potential toxic materials which are found within the waters of the state and which are derived from the treatment of mine drainage may be used, sold, or transferred for commercial gain and benefit. The funds received by the DEP are deposited into the Special Reclamation Water Trust Fund or the Acid Mine Drainage Set-Aside Fund and used by the department to fulfill its legal obligations. Private parties may retain the proceeds for themselves. Finally, the provisions are severable, and if any part of this bill is adjudged to be unconstitutional, unenforceable, or invalid, the determination does not affect the remaining provisions. Mr. Speaker, that's a summarization of the bill. I'm happy to take questions.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman to the 11th, Leonard Keaton, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand today to urge passage of House Bill 4003, and there's a lot of good stuff to say about it from an environmental perspective, but I want to really dig into the economic side of the issue. This bill is the beginning of some really, really great things whenever you talk about developing our state's role in rare earth and critical minerals. So we have ran a lot in this body on the idea of creating good jobs that can attract and retain people in this state. And this industry is the single largest step that we can take to make our state more attractive to advanced manufacturing. And I want to dig into that just a little bit. The kinds of industries that rely on a steady stream of rare earth and critical minerals to function are exactly the kinds of industries that we can count on to create the kind of jobs that people can support a family on a single income with. They're the kind of jobs that come with benefits, that put somebody in a position to buy a home, to put kids through school, and to offer real financial security for the people that work for them. Some of those industries, namely that use rare earth and critical minerals in their supply chains, are things like defense technology that we use to win our wars, to keep our country safe, things like chip manufacturing that we are all intimately familiar with because of the news, and that they're all tied up in all of these consumer goods that we can think of. So those industries, right, those industries are critical to our own nation's economic vitality. But I want to dig into the state of the market today. Currently, the communist government in Beijing controls 5 times of the processing capacity of the rest of the world put together whenever you look at the rare earths issue. Today, our country imports roughly 80% of the rare earth elements that we put into our own supply chain. So that doesn't even include the rare earth elements that we import in finished goods, right? That is just what we are using to make things here in the United States. 80%. I want you to think of that a country that won 2 world wars and stared down Soviet communism has decided to be totally dependent on a foreign adversary that views our decline as a prerequisite for their own national rise. When we as a country have decided to depend on our enemies to defend ourselves, to stock our store shelves, and to keep our factories running, to keep our people working, we have made a decision to no longer be free. House Bill 4003 provides the folks here in this body an opportunity to reassert American economic independence and to put West Virginia in a position to where we can really play a role in advancing the national interest and to put a lot of our people to work doing it. In the same way that our coal in the last century made the steel that beat the Nazis, right? So can our natural resources and the work ethic of our people can be called upon again to deliver a stronger, freer country for another century to come. So how does it do that? House Bill 4003 provides a clear way for companies to develop the rare earth and critical minerals that are contained in our acid mine drainage generally. And really, that allows us to lay the foundations that we're going to start getting the hang of processing these rare earth minerals and that sort of thing. It lays the foundation for reindustrialization across our state for years to come. While mine drainage might only be the beginning, it is in fact a huge step that we're going to take together today. It's a big step toward making things in America again, toward making things in West Virginia and to putting our people to work doing it. Mr. Speaker, I urge a yes vote on the bill to make our nation more independent, more economically self-determining, and our state to play a significant role in that. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Gentleman first, Secretary Tesla is recognized.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rule 49.
Gentleman will state the facts.
I am a member, I'm board member of a nonprofit that cleans acid mine drainage.
Yes, under that set of facts, it would be the ruling of the chair. The gentleman would have at best an indirect financial interest and therefore would be directed to vote. Is there further debate on the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine.
The following have paired in accordance with House Rule 43. Delegate Clark, yea. Delegate Fluharty, nay.
Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 94 ayes, 1 nay, and 5 members absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4003, relating generally to commercial benefit of substances removed from waters of the state by the treatment of mine drainage.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4111, relating to the prescriptive authority of advanced practice registered nurses.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? No objections are heard. Gentleman 35th to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bill before you is another example of a process that has been going on in the state of West Virginia during the pandemic, and we are seeking to codify that process today to bring better care to the people of the state of West Virginia. The bill seeks to clarify the prescriptive authority of both physician's assistants and advanced practice registered nurses. It does so by removing language from the PA Act that pertain to the prescriptive authority of advanced practice registered nurses. It also amends the code section pertaining to the prescriptive authority of advanced practice registered nurses. And in the bill, both now, if passed, both physician assistants and an advanced practice registered nurse may prescribe a 3-day supply of a Schedule II narcotic. Mr. Speaker, that's a summarization of the bill. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Lady in the 41st, Douglas Tully.
I'd like to request a Rule 49 as an advanced practice registered nurse who does hold a DEA license as well as prescriptive privileges. Thank you.
Is it Chair's understanding that more than 5 people hold that license?
Yes, there will be a number of more than 5, many more than 5 people.
Then it would be the ruling of the Chair that the lady would belong to a class of greater than 5 individuals and therefore would be directed to vote.
Thank you, sir.
Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 94 ayes, 0 nays, and 6 members absent. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4111, relating to the prescriptive authority of advanced practice registered nurses.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4296 to revise outdated provisions within Chapter 23 of the West Virginia Code, which pertains to workers' compensation.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? No objections are heard. Gentleman 32nd, Douglas Fast, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4296 is a bill that repeals and amends outdated provisions within Chapter 23 of the West Virginia Code. It clarifies workers' compensation laws relating to modernizing and updating the Workers' Compensation Code by removing or revising provisions made obsolete by legislation and regulatory revisions in 2005-2006, which affected the transition from the state-operated system to a competitive private insurance market. The bill standardizes references to public offices and agencies, updates statutory citations, and makes spelling and grammatical changes. That is a summary. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 94 ayes, 0 nays, and 6 members absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4296 to revise outdated provisions within Chapter 23 of the West Virginia Code, which pertains to workers' compensation.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Are there further bills on third reading? If not, bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4084 relating to advanced recycling.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4369, update the telepsychology compact.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading.
Senate Bill 436, correcting code citation for authority of state fire marshal.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3036, sunsetting the Board of Sanitarians.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4105, relating to service employees with National Association for Pupil Transportation Certifications.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4355, relating to the disclosure by state institutions of higher education of certain information regarding textbooks and digital courseware and certain charges assessed for those items.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4380, relating to transportation of athletic teams.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4389, relating to repealing school innovation zones provisions superseded by Innovation in Education Act.
The bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For our colleagues, delegates Clark, Horst, J. Jeffries, Nestor, Zukoff, and Martin.
Are there objections to leaves being granted? No objections are heard. Leaves will be granted. Introductions. Miscellaneous business. Gentleman 66, Douglas Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask unanimous consent that the remarks of our colleague from the 11th during consideration of House Bill 4003 be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Are there objections? No objections are heard. That'll be so ordered. Other miscellaneous business? If not, lady up in the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move, subject to announcements, the House adjourn until 11 a.m. Tuesday, February 8th.
Are there announcements?
Yes.
Lady in the 49th.
Thank you. Your Committee on Rules will meet at 10:45 Tuesday morning behind the chamber. And a second announcement, the last day for introductions of bills is approaching. You will need to have all your bills signed and approved to bill drafting by the end of business this Friday.
Gentleman the 10th, I got Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will meet today at 3 o'clock in the House Committee Finance Room. Also, Republican members of the committee will meet in the Chairman's office at 2:45. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman 32nd, Douglas Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Republicans will meet this afternoon in the Committee on Judiciary, the committee meeting room, 3 p.m. The Republicans will let me start this over, Mr. Speaker. We will have a Judiciary Committee meeting today at 3 p.m. The Republicans will caucus in the Chairman's office at 2:45. The agenda is posted.
June the 27th, Douglas Ellington.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to request availability of chamber for this Wednesday, February 9th from 9 to 10 a.m.
This Wednesday morning to the 9th. Chair is advised the chamber is available.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the House Committees on Education and Judiciary will hold a joint public hearing for House Bill 4011 establishing the Anti-Stereotyping Act on this Wednesday, February 9th from 9 to 10 in the House chamber. Registration to speak during the public hearing will open at 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday morning in the House chamber. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman 51st, Douglas Statler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will meet today at 3 p.m. in the Education Committee room. The agenda is posted. The Republican members are asked to caucus in the chairman's office at 2 p.m. Thank you.
Gentleman 15th, Douglas Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet today at 3 p.m. in the Government Organization Committee room, and Republican members will caucus 15 minutes before. The agenda is posted.
The gentleman of the 10th, Douglas Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning. Your Committee on Energy and Manufacturing will meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. in Judiciary Committee room. The agenda will be posted. Thank you.
The gentleman of the 31st, Douglas Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Veterans Affairs and Homeland Security will meet today at 1 p.m. in Judiciary Committee room. The agenda has been posted.
Gentleman 27th, Douglas Gearhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Pensions and Retirement will meet today at 1 p.m. in the House Finance Committee room. The agenda has been posted.
Gentleman 12th, Douglas Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Judiciary Subcommittee for House Bill 4006 relating to revising the criminal code will meet tomorrow, Tuesday, February 8th at 9 a.m. in the House Judiciary Committee room. Those members are myself, Delegate Kelly from the 6th, the delegate from the 11th, Keaton, the delegate from the 1st, McGeehan, the delegate from the 20th, Brown, the delegate from the 50th, Garcia, the delegate from 37, Puskin. I'll meet tomorrow, 9 a.m. to 11 in the House Judiciary Committee room.
Gentleman 24th, Dr. Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Select Committee on Coalfield Communities will meet today at 2 p.m. in House Education. Thank you.
The gentleman 6th, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a reminder and another announcement that we're going to be traveling to Mount Olive this Wednesday. We'll be leaving around 5 o'clock. And if you are interested in taking that trip with us, I'll be here at my desk after the floor session is over. Come and see me. We need a head count so we can make sure we have enough vehicles to get us all there. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman 22nd, Dr. Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your subcommittee on honorary infrastructure naming will meet immediately after floor session in my office, 212 East. Also, your Committee on Technology and Infrastructure will meet at 1 p.m. in HouseGov.org. The agenda is posted.
The gentleman 16th, Dr. Linville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. By way of announcement, the Chairman of Technology and Infrastructure invites any member and only members to the Government Organization Committee room at 7 p.m. tonight. Pizza will be provided to discuss House Bill 4001. No agenda needs to be posted. Thanks.
Gentleman 11th, Dr. Keaton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Republican freshmen will caucus tomorrow morning in the House Education Committee room at 8 a.m. At 8 a.m. tomorrow, and a calendar of events have been posted in the group text. Thanks.
The gentleman 3rd, Dr. Fluharty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Point of inquiry.
Yes.
It was previously announced that bills must be submitted by this Friday. Per Rule 91, my reading of it is bills can be introduced as late as the 15th of February in the House. So what is the reason why we must have everything in by Friday?
That would be to drafting, only to drafting, not for introduction. So bills can be introduced up until the deadline as provided by the rule. Gentleman is correct.
Well, doesn't that effectively kill any opportunity to get bills after Friday would be the drop-dead date the legislative calendar provides until the 15th?
It does. Any bill properly entered into the system for introduction by the introduction deadline on the 15th will be introduced.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, any member may still introduce a bill up until that day.
Thank you.
Are there other announcements? Okay, if not, the question is on the motion that the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow. Those in favor will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House is adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.